Hit subscribe, tap follow, and stay with Backstory, because the next empire that shaped the world is already on its way. It began as a muddy village on 7 hills, a handful of huts beside a river, surrounded by enemies. 800 years later, that same town ruled from the deserts of Egypt to the rainy hills of Britain. 50 to 60 million people under a single eagle. Rome didn't just build an empire. Rome built the blueprint every empire after it would copy. Its roads, its laws, its language, its calendar, even the way we count the months. So how did one city on the edge of nowhere end up owning the entire ancient world and then lose all of it? This is the entire history of Rome. The legend says it started with twins, Romulus and Remus, raised by a wolf, who argued over a wall until one killed the other. Romulus won. The city took his name, Rome, 753 BC. For its first centuries, Rome was ruled by kings, 7 of them, the stories claim, until the last one pushed his people too far. The Romans threw out their king, swore they would never kneel to one again, and built something new in his place, a republic. Power would be shared, elected, checked. It was an idea that would shape the next 500 years. And the word that came from their Senate, res publica, the public thing, still echoes in every republic on earth today. The young republic was hungry. City by city, war by war. Rome swallowed the Italian peninsula, not just by conquest, but by a trick its rivals never mastered. It offered the people it beat a path to becoming Romans themselves. Defeated enemies became allies, then citizens, then soldiers in the next war. Rome's real weapon wasn't the sword, it was the road and the legion that marched down it. Disciplined, relentless, and able to lose battle after battle and simply raise another army. By 270 BC, all of Italy answered to Rome. But across the sea, a richer, older power was watching, and it would push Rome to the edge of extinction. Her name was Carthage, a trading empire in North Africa that ruled the western seas. Rome and Carthage fought 3 brutal wars across more than a century. In the second, a Carthaginian general did the impossible. Hannibal marched an army and war elephants over the frozen Alps and crushed Roman legions on their own soil year after year. Rome should have fallen. Instead, it refused to surrender, struck back at Carthage itself, and won. In the Third War, Rome didn't just defeat Carthage, it erased it, burning the city to the ground. Rome was now the master of the Mediterranean, but conquest poured in so much wealth and so many enslaved people that it began to tear the Republic apart from the inside. Rome had beaten every enemy abroad and turned on itself. The rich grew obscenely rich on conquered land and slave labor. The poor and the soldiers grew angry. Ambitious generals realized the army was loyal to them, not the Senate. Civil wars followed. Out of the chaos rose one man, Julius Caesar. Brilliant, ruthless, wildly popular. He conquered Gaul, marched his army on Rome itself, and made himself dictator. To his enemies in the Senate, that was the end of the republic they had sworn to protect. On the Ides of March, 44 BC, they surrounded him and stabbed him to death on the Senate floor. They thought they were saving the republic. They had just killed it. Caesar's death didn't restore the republic. It triggered the final war for it. The winner was Caesar's young heir, Octavian. He defeated his rivals, took the name Augustus, and pulled off the cleverest trick in Roman history. He kept the Senate, the titles, the appearance of the old republic, while quietly holding all the real power himself. Rome now had an emperor in everything but name, and it worked. Augustus opened an era of relative peace and staggering prosperity, the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, that would last roughly 200 years. Trade flowed, cities boomed, and the empire swelled to its greatest size. At its height, Rome was a world unto itself, around 60 million people. A network of stone roads, so good that some are still walked today. Aqueducts carrying fresh water across valleys, public baths, sewers, libraries, and the roar of the Colosseum, where 50,000 spectators watched gladiators and spectacle. From Britain to the Euphrates, you could travel under one law, spend one currency, and be understood in Latin or Greek the whole way. It was the most connected the world had ever been, and would be again only many centuries later. But no empire stays at its peak forever. The cracks were already spreading. The trouble came from everywhere at once. Emperors were murdered by their own guards, sometimes a new one every few months. Plagues swept the cities. The economy buckled under the cost of defending borders that were now too long to hold. Pressed from outside by migrating peoples and rival empires, Rome split itself in two, a western half and a wealthier eastern half, just to be governable. The Christian faith, once persecuted, rose to become the empire's official religion, remaking Roman society from within. The West grew poorer, weaker, and more dependent on the very outsiders it once conquered. The eagle was still flying, but its wings were failing. 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. Rome, the city that hadn't fallen to an enemy in 800 years, was sacked, then sacked again. The Western emperors became puppets, ruling almost nothing. And in 476 AD, the last emperor of the West, a boy ironically named Romulus, was quietly pushed off his throne by a Germanic commander. No great battle, no final stand. The Roman Empire in the West simply ended. But here is what almost everyone forgets. The eastern half didn't fall. It carried on as the Roman Empire, centered on Constantinople, for another 1,000 years. Romans never stopped calling themselves Romans. That is the story we told last time. Go back and watch it. Rome fell, and yet Rome never really left. Our laws, our alphabet, the months on our calendar, the layout of our cities, the language buried inside half the words you're hearing right now, all of it is Roman. Empires for the next 1,500 years would measure themselves against Rome and dream of becoming the next one. A muddy village on 7 hills became the idea of civilization itself. But Rome wasn't the first great empire to rule its world. Long before the legions marched, another civilization had already ruled for 3,000 years along a single river. Next time, the entire history of ancient Egypt. Subscribe so you don't miss it. If you love history that actually grips you, subscribe and follow Backstory. One channel, the whole story of the world. A new empire every few days.